hotel was like, oh, we recommend for a town like to have 8 kinds of steak. Yeah, I have kept steak down.
Sunsets in finding June. But I noticed it was the same for you yesterday.
No, I always have zero. Yeah, sometimes I want to.
And that comes together with that.
Recently I had a whining instead of winning.
And dragged him down to bed. So I thanked him, and now this is coming up. I mean, I use this as a middle one. I have two big screens. Today, so Sentence locked out. I called a taxi and went back with me.
się zgadzają. Tam można pisać, że Polska specjalista.
So the Secretary General is on his way here.
A my tu mamy pół godziny później na razie. To oświadczyli ministrowie spraw zagranicznych.
Passt halt alles nicht zum Politik. Politik ist scheiße.
No, właśnie to. Ja na razie siedzę na
Just saying that just looking at this check.
Jestem umówiony
Ukraine can use German weapons. I mean, it's
That's a story that
in the end, Well, the great thing is to click it on the spot and because the train
You
doesn't.
can basically
There
skip
were
through
a
it
lot of.
and then just jump
The translation wasn't great. I mean, not the transcription.
in.
It was because of the audio.
Yeah. I was still pretty far away and it's a bit still. Still, I think we have an idea, and since you can sort of jump into the recording, you can use it.
The great thing is that
Yes, also gives you an idea. Otherwise, you wouldn't use that. Note times, something interesting. You want to leave it?
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I wish I can write it myself because I like writing on just check with them and then I want just to maybe they will turn on the Wi-Fi, but that would mean at least an hour and a half between the leave here and then Wi-Fi is cut off. So
If they turn it on, you can still connect it into your current
yeah, but I mean, I guess looking at the native Stoltenberg one, if the consistency with that, that'll sort of take over that chunk.
Yeah.
So
we were unlikely to get a whole different topic.
exactly. I mean, if I do Lincoln Cyprus. Okay. So why don't we do it that way? Why don't we do it that way? I can feed you that whatever.
Yeah, and just give me an indication.
I can even
Which direction
yeah,
that
I
it
can.
goes. It was really helpful. I don't know whether you saw it. I didn't do an overnighter in the end, but I
Yeah.
basically very late last day.
I can write the first.
Yesterday, and I basically used polls or open
Okay. I can write the top and just like what we need, and then if they turn on the Wi-Fi, I can take it back to compose it. I'm
Just
sure.
edit.
Yeah. Because if I write like separately, it's just gonna be
Yeah, why do we have to
why do we have to do that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's perfectly fair.
Yeah.
We just start from weekends and things like that. No, that's the thing.
We keep telling them not to do this present because it's on a Friday basis because of this.
It's the minister of all the
I mean, sometimes they do estimates and rates which are mostly less right at first, and that's great. Sometimes it's part of this.
I just wanted to say that's not that much time.
No, it's just enough. But and it's and the band's part. That makes a big difference rather than like
Yeah.
Did you travel with him or something?
sign them like yeah. It's very hard to go along. This year I've been on sometimes twice 7 since October 7th. Yeah. I don't mind it so much.
It's not like America to Australia.
Yeah, I love traveling in Europe. Can be wherever in 2 hours. And like your routine.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm leaving for our weekend house right after this.
Yeah.
Just as nice.
Oh really? Right.
No pizza.
Do you remember my girlfriend?
Right.
Yes.
I never thought about that. Right. Wait, can you better my college? Yeah. How does she know all the details?
But I was saying that because it's 2 hours from Prague and it's right on the German border. It's like 4 miles away. So they might get Spain from Germany.
Second, are you not relocating to that kind of shop?
Yeah, not really.
They had a oh my god, what's that?
How is Belgium cheaper? How is Belgium cheaper
How
than
did they
Germany?
justify that?
The good thing about Belgium is that they have a law in Belgium that employers must match inflation.
Yeah, and that's the, you know, exactly.
Last 2 years was really 15%, no, 10%.
That would have invented in Cyprus.
And then we had 35% inflation for the past 3 years. So that's the really
It's moved in the first place, and then this was also
minus 30%. Which is what you say.
yeah. Anyway, that was one thing, and then it turned out I took the defense stuff from Germany because it's not too much. Really not sure what I was doing. You know, like moving without moving during the pandemic, not probably knowing the magnitude of the excuses there, so just said, let me take the defense for home and that's what anyone in Germany populates. And now it's getting taken first. And I mean, the way this team is set up with John Irish, American coming from foreign policy, it's like 1,000 pairs. I'm not, I used to have foreign policy for females again, you know. Hopefully they're going to have some conscious thing. And then I would basically buying it because I'm having multiple language sitting in Brussels.
I think so too.
And it's also good to see, which is great.
Are you reporting to everyone?
Also, we noticed that people who sort of think it was self-fatigue.
Like who? Oh, I heard about him.
What's he doing? He's gone, huh?
No, I think he's like doing something with animals and stuff.
He's got a very
Job for ages.
he's got a very bizarre style, to say the least.
Pretends to pop up in houses.
Is it writing or behavior?
So, and normally
Camera.
that's sort of how this goes.
Many years ago, he was just a young guy. Got a job in Dubai. I was trying to
2 days ago.
I gave him a
Times
good
were
Yeah.
I didn't know.
New York Times.
I mean, people
Okay.
But how detailed, like
same
how
situation with John.
Yeah. Then people
drop
asked
it in
that,
the
I think,
But
to Miller
again,
or someone. Yeah, on Monday they asked me that. He was like, well, it comes from, I don't know.
And we also know it's the same thing as I think.
Have you been told to know by people, hey, you should be doing this? I mean, when you do something in our page, you should,
Yes.
at least as a courtesy, call the chief or whoever and say, hey,
Yes.
do you guys mind if for my reporting on this? That's the other thing.
Anyway, so last Wednesday, basically, so the second time around, I think whoever it is
We report directly to Rachel.
there's somebody else, I don't know.
Train ticket just to get a bar.
No, we can, yes, I think
That was the reason.
Remember Shirley Hart?
I do.
There was some funny story about him. He was original. He was in London doing a G7 summit in Scotland or something like that, and they were talking about like where they staying. And he said, oh, I'm staying at a source. But somebody later, I think they said, hey Sean, come on, we know where you're staying. There was some
I mean, we did with Ukraine package story yesterday. We've been walking for Portugal into I don't really see any need to get into it today. I don't think.
Is there any feedback on that? Is anybody saying, like the ministers, nobody said anything on that specific?
They didn't go into the number.
But
Then
Estonia
again,
and
I think, I mean,
Finnish were talking about the GDP percentage.
yeah.
So I see like the idea of
Who checks out location?
operations today, and the way
You don't want to
that
commit to
additionally IDF troops
But then again,
essentially
it wasn't a major,
okay, Hamas
major
locked up
topic of
that.
discussion.
And then
I think it was rather the restrictions and nobody really asked a lot about it during those things.
But it doesn't say like
For what?
Neither about the money nor about the training.
I mean, I'll throw that in. I'm just not entirely sure
No.
where
I think we'll touch on it again if it's allowed to
in
come
Rome.
out.
Do you know the process, like when looking at IDF
No, and Andrew kindly agreed to update the training. So, Hrzan.
Andrew's alright, is he?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Totally. Both of them, Andrew and John Irish, it's just fantastic. They were also, you know, when
My good impression.
Emma was also basically they took to decide whether we should and I was supposed to later, I mean, I'd gone to hospital, I was supposed to Stoltenberg later that day, but like that, I had to rush to the other part of the hospital, side of the town to test my mom. I mean, there's nothing I want to decide myself, and then basically like 10 minutes before Yeah, that's basically what I told. I wanted to give them an explanation because I mean, they not want to see the end of the day. You know, I went to Las Vegas the first time. Yeah, that's nothing. You want to break to your one, you know, it's like, that was good. I just completely dropped out. I mean,
It's taking Stoltenberg a long time to walk over us.
yeah, just feeling slightly guilty.
Alright, so the security general, he's already in the building. He will be coming shortly.
He is late and Lincoln's probably
When you may start. Start.
I think he's got him. My theory was that he's got him twice.
Do you take directly into it?
Yes.
Excellent.
And, you know, Harry Potter.
And then I asked her for you.
What's the reporter? You know, this like Richard Feather. Does all the work by
So now I've signed up. I'm going to put a free version. I should be able to do it. Do a
yes.
group with some people to share.
Honestly, since I didn't on it, I mean, you know, first I shared for half a year now, and it changed the system. Just try to figure it out. My feeling is it used to be easier to sort of share stuff. But which I just think
Oh, Rubio.
some amount of data.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
A couple
And
of
yeah, which doesn't give you everything.
So why does it just prevent us from using it?
I think it's not something.
It wouldn't create that same dynamic.
It's good you don't work in anything sensitive.
Yeah, like a Republic, like a Red House. Yeah, we have like two countries. Just, yeah, really. But then I think that could begin to underline pressure for establishment.
As long as nobody stops me from using it.
We do such a, I mean, there's this transcription software as well, we know that. And we, like, can I have it's like, no, somebody has a password in London. So I was told by our team, which uses it. So we now have like 30 people in this team using one modem. We must be violating this is illegal usage software. But it's I'm sure this is what's in the so we're doing
Like they thought he was going to get attacked.
Yeah, I thought it would get attacked. Like, when Trump was in power. Yeah. Basically, I think as long as you don't attack members of the Senate, which is pretty much fine. Yeah, never.
but they don't know what language to do.
Right, but then man does stuff like
Because we have mostly, this trend does check language, does it eventually?
he likes to play. Yeah.
Good afternoon. We'll hear from the Secretary General and then take some questions.
Good afternoon. We have just concluded a productive meeting of NATO foreign ministers. Our discussions focused on our support for Ukraine. We all want to stop this war, but the paradox is that the better we prepare for the long haul, the sooner the war can end. Russia must understand that it cannot wait us out. No final decisions were made today, but we made significant progress on 3 issues. First, NATO's plans to play a greater coordinating role in the provision of equipment and training. Practically all military aid to Ukraine, 99%, comes from NATO allies. So it makes sense that NATO should play a greater role in these efforts. This will enable us to use the NATO structures to put our support on a firmer footing, provide more predictability to Kiev, and address both immediate and longer-term needs. Secondly, I have proposed that allies commit to a multi-year financial pledge for Ukraine. Since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, allies have provided approximately 40 billion euros worth of military support to Ukraine each year. We must maintain at least this level of support each year for as long as necessary. I have also proposed that allies should share this burden equitably. This will improve accountability and give Ukraine the predictability they need to plan for the long term. Finally, we discussed Ukraine's path to NATO membership. Allies agree that Ukraine's future is in NATO, and we are determined to make progress in charting this path. Membership will be Ukraine's ultimate security guarantee. It will ensure a lasting peace and provide the stability needed for reconstruction. Let me add this on Allied support and the question of escalation. Russia started this war. They annexed Crimea in 2022. And in 2020, they annexed Crimea in 2014. And in 2022, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began the bloodiest conflict in Europe since World War II. Russia is striking hospitals, schools, and shopping malls. Russia is bombing power and water infrastructure. Russia is killing Ukrainian civilians. Ukraine is defending itself from appalling Russian brutality. So let me be clear. Self-defense is not escalation. Self-defense is a fundamental right. It is enshrined in the UN Charter. Ukraine has the right and the responsibility to protect its people. And we have the right to help Ukraine uphold its right of self-defense. Of course, Russia doesn't like this. At every stage of this war, Russia has complained, threatened, and saber-rattled. Putin wanted to deter NATO allies from supporting Ukraine. But we are not, and we will not be deterred. Russia is the one attacking. Russia is the one escalating, most recently by opening new fronts in the Kharkiv region, and with waves of new strikes on Ukrainian citizens. As the war has evolved, our support has evolved, and it will continue to evolve. I welcome that allies are providing many different types of assistance, and at the NATO summit, will put NATO's support on a firmer footing for the long haul.
Thank you, Secretary General. I'll start with Bloomberg. Andrea.
Secretary General, how confident are you that allies will agree on any fresh funding for the multi-year aid commitment to Ukraine?
Well, we are speaking about money for the future, and that's per definition fresh. We have already spent roughly 40 billion per year so far. What I'm asking allies to do is to commit that for the following years. And that's new money, because that's money which is not there now. And the important thing is that we need predictability. We need a firm commitment for the long haul to ensure that Ukraine is able to plan, to ensure that Ukraine has the predictability they need to conduct this war, self-defense, but also to send a message to Moscow that Moscow cannot wait us out. So the more clear it is that we are prepared for long haul, the sooner this war can end. Because the sooner President Putin realizes that he cannot win this war, we will be there for as long as necessary. Let me just add before we continue that I would also like to thank the Czech authorities, the Czech government, and the foreign minister for hosting this event. The foreign ministerial has been excellent, and the surroundings, the city of Prague, the castle, has been an excellent venue for a very important foreign ministerial meeting in NATO.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Czech TV.
Secretary General, could you provide us a bit more details about the future of Ukraine in NATO? Do you have some timing in your mind? Is it years or a long future?
NATO allies agree that Ukraine will become a member of the alliance. We are working on how to move Ukraine closer to membership. At the Vilnius summit, we agreed important steps. We removed the requirement for something called membership action plan, meaning that we turned the membership process for Ukraine from a two-step process to a one-step process. And we also agreed a comprehensive package for interoperability to ensure that Ukraine comes closer to NATO standards, doctrines, and full interoperability with NATO. Then I hope that at the summit in Washington we can take further steps. And I also believe strongly that the fact that we will most likely establish a mission providing or a stronger structure for providing support to Ukraine, that will also help to move Ukraine closer to membership. And of course, anything we do together with Ukraine will help them to come closer to membership. So allies agree that Ukraine should be a member, but the timing of the invitation depends on when there will be consensus and when the conditions are met.
Thank you. Dan.
Thank you. The announcement yesterday decision yesterday by the US, Germany, and maybe some other allies about possibly striking into Russia, retaliatory strikes into Russia, seems to be the latest example of NATO members coming around to a position that Ukraine and some allies have been begging for a long time, often less than what Ukraine wants, but actually relenting. Over the past day, has there been any discussion, or is there any ongoing discussion about trying to get more ahead on some of these tactics and enabling Ukraine to do more to actually pursue the strategy that you've outlined? Thank you.
As this war has evolved, NATO's support has evolved, and I welcome that allies are easing restrictions on the use of weapons. We need to remember what this is. This is a war of aggression. Russia has attacked Ukraine, and Ukraine has the right of self-defense, and the right of self-defense includes also striking legitimate military targets in Russia. And the fact that Russia has launched a new offensive, that they have escalated the war by opening a new front in the north, trying to move towards Kharkiv or into the Kharkiv region, demonstrates that when they now are attacking Ukraine from inside Russia, on the other side of the border, where when the borderline and the front line is more or less the same, then of course the only way to attack behind enemy lines is also then to attack into Russian or to strike into Russian territory. Allies are providing support in different ways. Some allies have never imposed any restrictions. Other allies have eased their restrictions. We just need to be vigilant. We need to adapt and evolve our support as the war evolves. And of course, we address these issues in the meeting today and will continue to coordinate very closely. That's also one of the reasons why I believe it will be helpful to have a stronger NATO coordination and a long-term financial pledge in line with what I have proposed.
Okay, Fats, Thomas, over there. Over there. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thomas Kutschka, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. Secretary General, again, 2 questions on the multi-year pledge. So do I understand you correctly that you no longer call for allies to make commitments for the time after the war? Because, of course, the 40 billion refers to wartime contributions. And secondly, when you say that the burden should be spread equitably among allies, are you referring to the NATO spending key, so contributions to common costs at NATO? Thank you.
So we will now start the work on the details of such a financial pledge. And there's no way I can go into all the details before I have presented them to all the allies and before we have worked through those details. But I strongly believe that we need a financial pledge, both to address immediate needs, but also to address the need to build a future force. So this is about making the Ukrainians able to defend themselves today and to deter future attacks in the future. So it's a combination of short-term and long-term. And of course, many of the things we do now as immediate responses to the immediate needs, for instance, providing F-16s, is part of the immediate response, the immediate needs for Ukraine to defend themselves today. But of course, many of those capabilities will also be part of the future force to deter any attack in the future. So I think this distinction between the future force and the needs today is a bit artificial. These things are linked, and therefore I think also it makes sense that NATO plays a role both in building the future force and in coordinating the support for helping the Ukrainians to deter aggression or to defend aggression today. Then again, details on burden sharing, we have to come back to that. But of course, GDP has been used before. GDP is a way that reflects in a way the economic strength, the income of each and every country. So when we discuss burden sharing in NATO, that's at least one option we can look into. And again, I can be more precise later on in this process. And at the summit, I expect to be able to tell you all the details.
Okay, thank you. Over to New York Times.
Hi, Secretary General. Edward Wong from the New York Times. Earlier in the war, one of the main reasons why restrictions were placed in the US on the use of weapons by various allied countries was because of the fear that President Putin would order the use of a tactical nuclear weapon in the battlefield in Ukraine. I'm wondering what has changed in that assessment. Do you have new intelligence that shows that the threshold is higher than you previously believed? Do you think that the allied countries made a mistake earlier in being too fearful of this? And have China and India exercised influence with Putin since then?
I think we need to understand that these are national decisions, and different allies have provided different types of support, and many allies have not imposed any restrictions. So that's nothing new, that NATO allies don't have restrictions. They give the weapons to Ukraine, and of course they all assume that they will be used also in line with international law, but international law opens up for the use against military targets in Russia, because that's part of self-defense. Then other allies have had more restrictions, but some of these restrictions are now eased or reduced, reflecting that the war has changed. Because now the front line is not inside Ukraine. Most of the fighting so far happened deep inside Ukraine. But now the fighting is in the Kharkiv region on the border between Russia and Ukraine, and then it makes sense also then to adapt any restrictions that would make it impossible for the Ukrainians to hit back against artillery positions, missile positions in Russia, directly attacking Ukrainian forces or Ukrainian cities. President Putin has threatened NATO allies since the beginning of the war. He has been out there again and again. Actually, the day before the invasion, he gave a speech where he threatened any ally that provided support to Ukraine. But we are not being deterred. Because if we had been deterred by that message, then we couldn't have given any support. He tried to prevent us from giving any military support. They tried to prevent us from providing armor, advanced missile systems, fighter jets, and we have evolved and stepped up our support because we strongly believe that Ukraine has the right for self-defense, and we have the right to help Ukraine upholding the right of self-defense.
Okay, thank you. European Pravda.
Thank you. European Pravda Ukraine. I have a question about this long-term support. We know that some allies are not willing to provide Ukraine with military assistance. How do you see, could this decision be adopted in a way that it would not be able to veto it if one country decides not to grant military assistance to Ukraine? Thank you.
I'm confident that we will reach good conclusions that will ensure that NATO allies, of course, will continue to provide support to Ukraine, and that we'll have a stronger NATO framework around that support to ensure coordination and predictability and accountability. Because we need to ensure that when support is announced, pledged, that actually that turns into real deliveries to Ukraine. And we have seen some discrepancies between what has been promised and what has been delivered. So for better coordination, for better compliance, for ensuring predictability, I strongly believe that NATO should play a bigger role in coordinating this support. And we will find ways to ensure that, that this is decisions that will work and will not be blocked. So I will not make my job easier if I share with you all the details of how we are discussing these issues. So at the end of the day, I will present you with a beautiful conclusion, and then I can tell all the details.
Okay, the lady in the fourth row.
Thank you, sir. Chinese defense minister today denied again that China is providing any assistance to Russia's war effort, saying it was impartial in the matter and that it strictly controls its military exports. Meanwhile, of course, the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State has said this week that it's a sustained effort backed by PRC leadership and designed to give Russia every support. A UK official recently suggested that lethal aid is on its way to Beijing. So, after these months of sustained diplomatic pressure, what is NATO observing in the trends in China? Is its increase for Russia, is its support for Russia increasing, and is lethal aid a possibility? Thank you.
China is propping up Russia's war economy. Russia would not have been able to conduct the war of aggression against Ukraine without the support from China. China is delivering big amounts of dual-use equipment, advanced electronic equipment, including high-end technology and semiconductors, and 90% of the microelectronics that Russia imported last year came from China. And without these advanced high-end products, Russia would not have been able to produce the missiles, the bombs, the planes they are producing to attack Ukraine. So there is no doubt that China is playing a key role in enabling the Russians to produce the weapons they use to attack Ukraine. And in return, Moscow is mortgaging its future to Beijing. And then on top of that, you have North Korea providing big amounts of ammunition, and Iran providing drones and other types of weapons to Russia.
Okay, one last question for Asahi Shimbun, please. Go ahead.
What will be discussed in the July summit with Indo-Pacific partners, and is there any progress since last year?
Yes, and I think the war in Ukraine and the issue we just addressed about how China is playing an important role to enable Russia to attack Ukraine demonstrate that security is not regional anymore. Security is global. The war in Ukraine is something that can take place because North Korea, Iran, and China are providing support to Russia. So it demonstrates the link between Europe and Asia-Pacific, and what happens in this Asia-Pacific matters for Europe and vice versa. So I look forward to welcoming the heads of state and government from Japan, South Korea, New Zealand and Australia. We strongly believe that we should strengthen our partnership with these countries, not least to address the challenges that China poses to our security. And of course, this matters for these partners, it matters for us, and therefore we need to strengthen our cooperation as we will do at the summit in Washington.
Thank you, Secretary General, and thank you all.
Thank you so much.
I'm wondering whether I'm invited. I didn't know that. I mean,